Hubert, Hooper. You know, Dondre is originally from North Platte. This will be an interesting fight. You know, Dondre has an 0-3 record, but he's fought in some tough fights and big shows like Victory Fighting Championships, so we really don't know a lot about him. Sometimes guys just get a draw of tougher opponents sometimes. He's very skilled. He has the ability. I just think he's taken tougher fights than probably what he should have. Hooper's the stronger wrestler, so I would think Hooper would want to get this to the ground and use some ground and pound.
You know, earlier this year, Mark Hooper had a few broken ribs.
He did, from some illegal strikes.
Doesn't appear to be affecting his striking at this point.
No, he's probably very healed up from that. I mean, that was a nice reversal by Hooper to get back to his feet. I think I've noticed these two guys come out and just a little bit nervous and anxious. They should just, you know, they'll calm down a little bit. That's what Mark needs to do, just calm down. Dondre needs to quit dropping his hands when he gets kicked. But other than that, Dondre's done pretty well.
The first minute or so of the first round has got to be really difficult for the fighters, trying to size the other person up. I'm sure they've done their homework a little bit, but
a lot of times, yeah. At the amateur level, a lot of these guys, you know, their opponents change. So sometimes they may have trained for somebody else, prepared for somebody else, and they get somebody different. In this case, both these guys have known for 2 months they were fighting each other, but there's not a lot of tape out there on, you know, your opponent when you're an amateur. There's some stuff on YouTube, but you pretty much execute your game plan regardless of who the opponent is. You know, I've seen when Mark lands the leg kicks, Dondre drops both hands, and this is where Mark wants to go upstairs, take a head kick, and catch him with his hands down.
Well, Hooper seems to be, like you had mentioned, he's a strong wrestler, but it looks like he feels comfortable up on his feet.
Right. But you also want to be careful. Like Mark hit a good jab and stumbled him and then come rushing straight forward. You want to be careful. Mark wants to be careful about coming straight forward. You need to take angles. The fight game is about angles. You come straight forward. Even if you've rocked your guy, you could come straight forward. He throws a haymaker and the lights are out. So Mark wants to be real careful about rushing forward. You know, more head movement. I can see more head movement out of Mark. But he should be keying on that head kick at this point with Dondre dropping his arms every time Mark leg kicks him. And if you watch, both hands go down. So he's leaving his head wide open. This would be the time where Mark would want to set it up and go to the head with that kick. Probably would score the KO if he committed to the kick.
Oftentimes the first round is like a chess match, trying to feel each other out and strategize, trying to see, like you said, I kick him this way, he drops his hands, that's going to be my opening.
Absolutely. And sometimes it is. Sometimes, like, people a lot of times they want to think that the jiu-jitsu, the wrestling is the chess match, but standing up is just as much as a chess match. You're throwing feints and fakes to see what your opponent's going to do. Some guys come out and they're just throwing. They're not really throwing for any purpose. They're not trying to see what their opponent's going to do to set anything up, and that's where you start to see a fighter's level change. A fighter that's the higher the amateur level or higher the pro level will throw jabs to see what his opponent does, so he knows what he can come back with, what he can counter with, what his opponent may be trying to counter with. Your opponent might show their cards, and you know, okay, I threw the jab, he's trying to load up with the right, so I'm going to come with this, you know. And that's something that both of these fighters seem to be more of the animalistic fighters, just throwing whatever. But when you start to watch the higher levels, you'll start to see that out of the fighters.
It appears as though Hooper took some hits to the left side of his face, and it appears to be causing some vision problems for him. How is that going to affect him in the second round?
You know, it's hard to say. What he needs to do is move his head. I mean, Dondre has heavy hands, so even if they're wild, one of them can land and end the whole fight. So you want to be smart, take angles, and have head movement. And maybe we'll see that in the second round out of Mark, you know. But they both want to be careful about dropping their hands. Just like I said, you get these lower level amateurs and they haven't developed complete skill sets yet, and those are sometimes things that can be exploited. That's a nice Superman punch. Followed
Seems
up with
like
a nice
Mark came
kick.
out in the second round a little more confident, maybe fewer jitters, as you had mentioned.
Oh, that was a very nice spinning heel kick, landed right to Mark's ribs. Very nice. But yeah, Mark probably calmed down. His corner probably told him to calm down. Sometimes some guys are very good fighters. Whoa, nice exchange. Hubert was hurt. Mark wants to look for a takedown or try the tie clinch. I think he's pretty much dominating the stand-up. He's taken a few hits, but he's dominated the technical side of the stand-up. Right here, Mark should have tie plumb there, but at this point he should be trying to get back to his feet. Unless he thinks he can pull a guillotine. But a lot of times trying that guillotine, you better be certain, because you give up a dominant fighting position to go for a submission that you may or may not get. And there you go.
There was a turnover.
He ends up in a worse position.
It's actually kind of an odd position they're both in on the ground right now. Neither one of them really have the leverage that they want, that they're looking for.
Until now, and then Dondre went for that mount. Didn't really have his position, but he went for the mount, and then Mark was able to reverse it and roll him. Sometimes you want to be careful when you're going for a transition. Make sure you have that position before you go for it. And Dondre really wasn't set and got rolled. And at this point, Mark should really try to posture up and start dropping some heavy hands on him. He needs to hurt him. He needs to do some damage. He needs to score some points.
At this point, this fight is all about points.
Right.
And
it actually is. Even though a KO or submission wins, strikes, takedowns, good ground skills, submission attempts, they accumulate points. So if you go to a judge decision, that's what they score on.
And for better or worse, takedowns are still high point getters.
Takedown there, Dondre caught Mark napping and was able to reverse him. Yeah, takedowns are actually scored very, very high in MMA, maybe too high. In my opinion, if you're going to score somebody high points for a takedown, then if he stuffs if the opponent stuffs the takedown, you have to score that equally high. If they're going to score a submission attempt high, well, when the guy defends the submission, they should score that equally high. And we really have kind of a messed up scoring system in MMA, and it's a judge-by-judge basis, unfortunately. But it's tough to judge on it because there's so many skills. Stand-up, ground game, wrestling, jiu-jitsu. There's so many different things to have. Mark did a good job listening to his corner. He seems to be a little more in tune with this corner. Corner told him put Dondre's head in the cage, and he instantly turned, brought Dondre's head in the cage, which will bring his head up closer for when Mark wants to strike. So it's good to see Mark listening to his corner. A lot of guys don't.
No doubt with these two young fighters, with 1 round left to go, there's still a lot of fight.
A lot of fight. I know Mark is in fantastic condition, cardio-wise and obviously physically. Dondre his nickname's the specimen. Obviously, he's a physical specimen, but where's his cardio at? He seemed to be taking some heavy, labored breaths. Usually you watch a fighter's midsection, you see six-pack go away, six-pack go away. Usually he's taking some deep breaths. He's tired.
Mark coming out in round 3 with some speed around the ring.
Yeah, Mark, like I said, Mark, condition-wise, is always in fantastic condition. He can go 3 rounds easy. He's got it in him every fight. And most of his fights have gone to
He almost
decisions.
took advantage of that opening that you were talking about earlier,
right,
with the low kick, and then when he saw Dondre drop his hands, he went in.
Well, and Dondre leaves his hands open wide, and when he jabs, he drops that right hand to his waist, and that's something Mark should be capitalizing on, because there, as you heard his corner say, left hook, because every time Dondre throws a jab, he drops his right hand and leaves that chin wide open for Mark's left hook.
That's a failed kick, could actually hurt Dondre in the end here in this round. It takes a lot of energy to.
Absolutely, it takes energy, and when you throw those and you slip like that, you give your opponent an advantage to if he attacks while you're on the ground. Oh, big hit! Big hit. Dondre's hurt. He is hurt bad.
Dondre looked a little dazed when he went down, but he seemed to gather his senses there.
Mark needs to go right to work and not allow Dondre to get the cobwebs out and come back. Mark needs to posture up, and the more he lets Dondre lay there and get his senses back, quicker Dondre's going to be right back in the game. Mark needed to be right now. Mark needs to be posturing up and dropping heavy bombs, whether they're elbows or hands. He needs to be dropping, because by now, as good of conditioning as Dondre is in,
he's already regaining.
He's
strength.
already regained it. Absolutely. And at this point, they're both in fear of the judge or the referee standing them up. If they're not doing anything, Dondre is just holding on. Mark's best bet would be just to lay there. The ref will stand him up. Either that or he needs to posture up and strike. And the referee, Josh Knight's a fighter himself, former fighter. He knows if a fighter's in trouble, and he knows what, if somebody's laying there and stalling. And I would bet if nobody throws a punch in the next few seconds, he's standing him up.
Hooper's corner was on your same page and telling him, do not just lay there. We're too far into this fight. You cannot let him regain his strength.
Right. And when you drop somebody like that good, and if you're already kind of controlling the stand-up, that could be a 10-8 round from you, but you don't want him to steal it at the end by getting his wits back and then coming back and pulling a submission or getting back to his feet. But I guess we'll see what the judges say.
End of 3 rounds goes to the judges.
And we go to the judges' decision, which was a split decision. The first judge, judges 29-28 for Mark Hooper. Second judge, judges 29-28 for Dondre Hubert.